Libertarians can propose bold government spending cuts now. Where big government Democrats and Republicans pretend to cut government spending while voting for bigger budgets, Libertarians can expose their tricks and their games and their manipulations and call for humane and sensible cuts in spending. Where big government Democrats and Republicans dole out pork and favors to their special interest profiteers, Libertarians can propose to drive down government spending and therefore keep taxes much lower for hardworking Americans and for the small businesses of America. To restore the Constitution, to end our nation's burgeoning debt crisis, to turn around big government and make it small, we must cut today's total government spending dramatically, boldly, and at all levels of government. We must think big and cut big, and we must do it now. Much smaller government and much lower government spending will lead to more private sector jobs, more freedom, and more prosperity. So as Libertarians, let's give Americans what they want. Bold, immediate government spending cuts now. Thank you.
Formally, after 10 minutes, but we can actually swap over a little bit.
Okay. By the way, is this podium making a lot of noise?
Not really.
From up here? It's not very loud. Okay. Anybody have a question?
First of all, Ms. Howell, thank you very much for your tremendous work on behalf of Liberty. Should we see a Romney administration, given your previous experience, what would you anticipate?
Oh, Jim, you must know you hit on my hot button.
I had a suspicion.
You had a suspicion. I ran against Mitt Romney, as Jim mentioned, for governor in 2002, and actually knew him before he ran for governor. So, you know, you compartmentalize the relationship with people in politics and elsewhere. As a man, he's a businessman, a successful businessman. I don't have any qualms against him as a human being. As a politician, I would make the assertion that he is perhaps the most dangerous politician in America. And the reason is a couple of things. First of all, as you know, he introduced Romney Care. Now, when I ran against him for governor in 2002, I read his every press release, his every speech that was published, every ad, everything that this guy said. Not once did he breathe a word of Obamacare, Romney Care, or whatever. They're basically the same thing. And nor did he talk, and he said repeatedly that he would not raise taxes. He raised taxes hundreds of millions of dollars every single year he was governor. And he raised spending over $5 billion. And that's $5 billion more that we must spend and get taxed on every year in Massachusetts. Amazingly, when he ran for president in 2008, he said, as he did while he was governor all the time, I have cut spending $2 billion. I have cut spending $3 billion. Very simple math that most 7-year-olds can handle would prove this man a liar. He increased government spending. He introduced dozens, scores of new taxes every year. And he introduced the granddaddy of all government expansions, socialized medicine, as a Republican. Now here's where he gets really dangerous. In 1988, our former governor, who was also a presidential candidate, Michael Dukakis, passed a similar measure. It was repealed in 1992. People rose up against it. The Republican governor then, William Weld, and others repealed it. In 1993, Hillary Clinton proposed Hillary Care as a Democrat. The Republicans rose up in opposition, and it never got to a vote. in 2006, he started lobbying for it in 2003. In 2006, Mitt Romney signed into law Romneycare. In those 3 years that he was lobbying for this new program, locking arm in arm with Ted Kennedy, there was not a single column in a Massachusetts major newspaper opposing his plan. There was no evidence from the Republicans I know in Massachusetts that anyone did so much as pull him aside and say, "Excuse me, Governor, have you lost your mind?" There was virtually no resistance. Now, you hear people sometimes, Romney and others, claim on his behalf, "Oh, poor Romney, he had an overwhelming Democrat legislature that he had to deal with," which is 85% Democrat. But his spending and tax increases every year were proposed by him. He proposed $1 billion in new spending every year before the Democrats even weighed in. And he initiated Romneycare all by himself. The Republicans, when they advance government, are the most dangerous because the rest of the Republican establishment and all their Republican media allies will roll over like little puppies and say nothing, and they will vote with their Republican leader. Obamacare passed, barely, and it's still under fire. There's been ballot initiatives and legislation passed in about 20-some states to preempt it. There's been every Republican candidate, including Romney, claiming they will repeal it. There remains huge resistance against Obamacare, and it has a chance of going down. If Mitt Romney becomes president, we should expect socialized medicine in this country for the foreseeable future, if not a very long time, because there will be no resistance to it. And this is why the idea of cozying up to Republicans who behave this way is not in our interest. If we as libertarians are going to do something different, we need to be just as willing to speak out against Republicans and as Democrats, because they are sometimes even more dangerous. Yes.